Joyce, we need to talk, my husband Dylan said quietly. His voice sounded sad, but I could tell he was faking it. I looked up from my laptop. I had been working on the plans for our home renovation. Standing next to him was his mother, Evelyn. She held a tissue to her eyes, pretending to cry. My stomach sank. I had seen this act before. Evelyn was an expert at fake tears. The doctor says I only have 7 months left to live, she said, her voice shaking. I don't want to be alone when it happens. Then she dropped herself into our armchair, the same one she had complained about last week, saying it didn't match her living room style. She even measured it, like she was thinking of taking it home. Something felt off. My name is Joyce Byers. I'm 35 years old, and 3 years ago, my life changed forever. My parents passed away in a car accident. With the inheritance they left me, I bought my dream home, a beautiful old Victorian house. It needed a lot of repairs, but it was mine. I finally had something that was just for me. From the beginning, Evelyn never liked the fact that I owned the house. She always made little comments. Now here she was, trying to move in. Mom needs to live with us, Dylan said firmly. We can turn your art studio into her bedroom. His words hit me hard. That studio meant everything to me. It was where I painted, where I felt peaceful. The room had large windows that let in soft, warm sunlight, the perfect place to create art. I had dreamed about having a space like that for years. I know this is a surprise, Evelyn said, dabbing at her eyes again. But family stays together in hard times. Family? She had never treated me like family. I had been married to Dylan for 9 years, and in all that time, she had made me feel like I didn't belong. To her, I was the woman who had taken her precious son away. Which doctor told you this? I asked gently. Maybe we should get another opinion, just to be sure. Evelyn paused. Dr. Henry, she finally said. But I trust him. Dr. Henry? That name made my eyes narrow. Last year, just before Dylan and I were going to Belgium for vacation, Evelyn said the same doctor told her she had a rare disease. We canceled the whole trip to take care of her. And then, just 3 weeks later, she was totally fine. I looked at her, trying to stay calm. Was this another one of her tricks? I had already given up so much because of her lies. I need time to think, I said. And I meant it. Because this time, I wasn't going to be fooled so easily. I said I need time to think, I repeated calmly. Dylan didn't like that. He raised his voice. My mother is dying. Where is your compassion? I looked at him closely. For years, I had watched him take his mother's side over mine in every argument. No matter how small or big the issue, he always defended her. And now he was doing it again. Something inside me shifted. I understand this is hard, I said firmly, but I still need time to think. Evelyn, who had been standing quietly, suddenly smiled sweetly. Well, she said in a soft voice, since Dylan is your husband, the house belongs to him too. And it's a son's duty to take care of his mother. I raised my head and looked directly at her. Actually, the house is in my name only, I said clearly. I bought it with the inheritance my parents left me. Evelyn's fake smile faded. She wasn't expecting that response. But that's not the point, I continued. This is a serious decision. I won't be rushed. I walked out to the garden to clear my head. The garden was my favorite place. Quiet, peaceful, full of flowers I had planted with care. I sat on the wooden bench and pulled out my phone. I searched for Dr. Henry's office and called the number. Hi, I said politely to the receptionist. I'm checking on a patient, Evelyn Sharma. Do you have any record of her visit? I'm sorry, the woman replied. We don't have any patient with that name in our system. I thanked her and ended the call. I wasn't surprised. My gut had been telling me something was wrong. Later, I called my sister Megan. She's a nurse and has access to medical records. Can you check something for me? I asked her. 3 days later, Megan called back. Evelyn hasn't been to any cancer specialist, she told me. She hasn't even seen an oncologist. There's no diagnosis. She's lying. I felt both relieved and angry. For a whole week, I had watched Evelyn act like she was sick. She brought over moving boxes and talked about what color she wanted to paint the walls. Dylan treated me like I was heartless. He barely spoke to me and looked at me like I was the bad person for hesitating. Then came the big family dinner. Evelyn had invited everyone. Dylan's sisters, their husbands, aunts, uncles, and cousins. I knew what she was trying to do. She wanted to make me look bad in front of the whole family. She stood up during dinner and pretended to be emotional. She announced her fake diagnosis and said I had kindly agreed to let her move in. Everyone clapped and praised Dylan for being such a loving son. I stood up too. My hands didn't shake. I lifted my glass and said, "I have something to say." Evelyn smiled, thinking I was about to agree. Instead, I opened a folder, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "I spoke to Dr. Henry's office. I also spoke with every other cancer doctor in the state," I said clearly, looking directly at Evelyn. Her face turned pale. The dining room went completely silent. The only sound was her fork dropping onto her plate. It clattered loudly in the quiet room. Her hands began to shake as she reached for her water glass. I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "Dr. Henry doesn't share patient information." "That's strange," I replied calmly, "because Dr. Henry retired 4 years ago. His clinic has been closed ever since." Dylan stood up quickly. His chair made a loud noise as it scraped across the floor. "Joyce, what are you doing?" he asked, looking upset. I didn't raise my voice. I simply opened the folder I had brought with me and pulled out the papers I had carefully gathered. "I contacted every cancer hospital and clinic within 200 miles, I said. Not a single one has a patient named Evelyn Sharma diagnosed with cancer. In fact, there's no record of her being tested at all." The room filled with whispers. People exchanged confused and shocked looks. Evelyn's sister, Madison, leaned forward and frowned. "Evelyn, is this true?" she asked gently. Evelyn suddenly stood up and shouted, "She's lying. Joyce is trying to turn all of you against me because she doesn't want me in that fancy house of hers." "Actually," I said as I slid the papers across the table, "I'm telling the truth. These are official hospital records. If anyone doubts me, you can call the hospitals yourselves and ask." Dylan picked up the papers with shaking hands. He stared at them, trying to make sense of what he was reading. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Mom wouldn't. She wouldn't lie like this." Jacqueline, his younger sister, spoke up from the end of the table. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Really?" she said. "Do you remember when she faked pneumonia before your wedding? Or that heart problem she claimed to have when you got the job offer in Sacramento?" Evelyn's face twisted with anger. "Jacqueline, how dare you talk to your mother like that?" "Yes, you're my mother," Jacqueline replied, "and I love you. But enough is enough. The lies, the fake illnesses, the drama, it's not okay anymore. It hurts everyone." Dylan slowly sat down, still holding the documents. I could see the truth sinking in. "You just wanted the house," he whispered, looking heartbroken. Evelyn finally lost control. "Of course I wanted the house," she shouted. "Why shouldn't I? She used her inheritance to buy that beautiful home, while I'm stuck living in a tiny old house. It's not fair." She looked around the room, but no one defended her. Because deep down, everyone finally saw her for who she really was. I kept my voice calm as I spoke again. "Was it fair when you tried to convince Dylan to fight my inheritance in court? Or when you told everyone at church that I was showing off my parents' death by buying this house?" The room went quiet. I could see the shock on everyone's faces. It was clear Evelyn had never told them those parts of the story. Dylan's head snapped up. His eyes were wide. "You did what?" he asked, stunned. "She needed to be put in her place," Evelyn said through clenched teeth. "She always walks around acting perfect, so independent. A real wife would have given that money to her husband." Madison, Evelyn's sister, narrowed her eyes. Her voice was sharp as she spoke. "Like you gave your inheritance to your husband? Oh wait, you didn't get one, did you?" That comment cut deep. Everyone in the room felt the shift.
The truth was out now.
The real reason behind all of this was jealousy. Evelyn had never accepted that I used my own money to build something beautiful. Evelyn's face began to crumble. But this time, it wasn't one of her fake crying episodes. This was real. Her lies, her plans, her years of bitterness, they were finally unraveling. I just wanted, she started to say, then stopped. She looked around like she didn't know what to do anymore. You wanted to control everything, Jacqueline said, finishing her sentence. That's what this is all about. But this time, you crossed a line. Faking cancer, Mom, that's cruel. Not just to Joyce, but to anyone who's actually living with that pain. Dylan stood again. But he didn't look angry now, just tired. Like a weight had dropped on his shoulders. I think everyone should go home, he said quietly. Then he turned to Evelyn. Mom, I'll drive you. But Dylan, Evelyn began. No, Mom, he interrupted, firm this time. Not this time. Everyone started leaving the table. One by one, they walked past Evelyn without making eye contact. She looked around the room, her eyes searching for support. But no one looked back at her. I stayed seated, my hands folded in my lap. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the table, still trying to process everything. Madison paused as she walked by me. She gently placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, she said quietly. We should have seen it sooner. After the last guest left, the house felt still. I got up and started clearing the dinner plates, most of which hadn't even been touched. From outside, I heard the sound of Dylan's car engine starting, then driving away. I didn't know if he'd be coming back tonight. Honestly, I didn't know what would happen next. But as I stood in the kitchen of my house, I reminded myself of one thing. No matter what happened next, I still had my truth. And I still had my home. I felt something I didn't expect, relief. The truth was finally out. And with it, the heavy weight I'd carried for years was gone. All the fake smiles, the quiet insults, and Evelyn's constant control no longer sat on my shoulders. I walked over to the window that looked out into my garden. The sky was glowing with shades of pink and gold as the sun slowly set. It looked peaceful. Whatever happened next, I knew deep down I had done the right thing. My parents had always told me to stand up for what's right. Tonight, I finally listened. Just then, I heard the front door open. I turned around and saw Dylan standing there. He looked tired, more than just physically. His face held something deeper, shame. I dropped her off at home, he said quietly. His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't spoken in a while. She cried the whole way there. She said I was choosing you over her. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched him as he slowly walked into the kitchen, taking it all in. He looked like a stranger in his own home. He gently ran his hand over the kitchen counter, the same one we had picked out together when we were fixing up the house. So many memories had been built here. But that's not what this is about, is it? He said, finally breaking the silence. This is about choosing truth over lies. And I've been blind, Joyce. So blind. I leaned against the sink and crossed my arms. Yes, you have, I said, not in anger, but in truth. He nodded. All those times she suddenly had health scares, always when something good was about to happen for us. The tropical disease scare right before our anniversary trip, I added quietly. The heart problems when you got the Sacramento job offer. And now, fake cancer. He looked down and shook his head. She knew what she was doing. She always has, I said softly. Dylan looked at me, then really looked at me. Maybe it was the first time he'd truly seen me in years. How did you stay? He asked, his voice filled with pain. Knowing what she was doing, watching me fall for her lies every time? Because I loved you, I said simply. But Dylan, I can't keep living like that. I won't do it anymore. He nodded and slowly sat down in one of the kitchen chairs, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to make sense of everything. I don't expect you to, he said, his voice cracking. What she did, faking cancer. He paused, trying to hold back tears. My aunt died of cancer last year, he whispered. How could she use that? How could my own mother use something so painful just to get what she wanted? I didn't have an answer. But for the first time, we were both finally facing the truth. I moved to sit across from Dylan, feeling the heavy weight of everything we had just been through. The silence between us was full of emotion. Your mother needs help, Dylan, I said gently. Professional help. What she's doing isn't normal. He nodded slowly. Jacqueline's already looking into family therapists, he replied. She thinks Mom's behavior has gotten worse since Dad passed away. It's like she always has to be in control, always has to be the center of everything. We sat quietly for a while. The soft ticking of the kitchen clock was the only sound. Each second felt like it marked a new beginning, a moment of reflection. We both had so much to think about. Finally, Dylan reached across the table. He opened his hand, palm facing up. I know I don't deserve your trust right now, he said quietly. But I want to try. I want a chance to make this right. To be the kind of husband you deserve, not just the son my mother expects me to be. I looked at his hand, thinking about everything we had been through. Every time I had felt unheard, pushed aside, and alone in my own home. It won't be easy, I said, my voice steady. There have to be real boundaries this time. Clear ones. I know, he agreed quickly. No more sudden visits. No more guilt trips. No more letting her decide how we live our lives. He paused, then added, and I think we should go to counseling. Together. I need to understand how I let things get this far, how I hurt you by always choosing her side. Tears filled my eyes, not because I was sad, but because for the first time in years, I felt seen. This was the man I had fallen in love with. The man I thought I had lost to his mother's control. Okay, I said, placing my hand gently into his. We can try. The next few months were not easy. Evelyn would swing between crying and saying sorry, then suddenly blaming me again. Some days, she called just to yell. Other days, she pretended everything was fine. But we stayed strong. Dylan started therapy both with me and on his own. He began to see how deep his mother's influence had gone and how much it had hurt our relationship. He worked hard to change, and I could see the difference. I also focused on myself. I finished setting up my art studio, finally turning it into the peaceful space I had always dreamed of. I filled it with bright light and big canvases. And sometimes while I painted, I thought back to that dinner. The night it all changed. The night I almost lost my dream home because of Evelyn's lies. But I didn't lose it. I held on. And now I was finally getting my peace back. When I look at how much our lives have changed, I feel calm and grateful. There is peace now. There is honesty between Dylan and me. Our connection feels stronger than it has in years, and I know deep in my heart, it was all worth it. It took time, but Evelyn eventually agreed to start counseling. It wasn't easy. She only went after Jacqueline and Madison sat her down and gave her a serious choice: get help or be left out. That moment finally made her realize she couldn't keep living the way she had. She's still learning. Slowly, step by step, she's trying to rebuild her relationships, not with lies or guilt, but with honesty. Last week, she even surprised me by sending a real card. A handwritten note, simple but sincere. In it, she apologized for everything she had put me through. It wasn't a big, dramatic moment, but it meant something. It was the first time I felt like she saw me, not as a threat but as part of the family. Dylan and I finally took that trip to Belgium, the one we had postponed so long ago. We visited beautiful cities, ate delicious food, and sent postcards to his mother from every place we went. Just simple updates, kind and thoughtful, with no hard feelings. When we returned, our home was exactly the way we left it. No surprise visits, no made-up emergencies, no emotional drama. Just peace. Just home. Yesterday, I was working in my garden when I noticed something special. A small rosebud had pushed through the soil, the first one of spring. It made me smile. That tiny flower felt like a symbol of everything we'd been through. Like our family, it was growing again, but this time in a healthy way. Slowly, naturally. Not perfect, but real. That's all I ever wanted. The house still stands just as it always has. Same walls, same rooms, same windows. But something about it feels different now. It's not just my escape anymore. It's not the place I go to hide from problems. It's our home, mine and Dylan's. A place built on trust, respect, and truth. A place where we can grow without fear, without lies, And without control, there may still be bumps along the way. Healing isn't always fast or easy. But I know one thing for sure. No amount of manipulation, guilt, or pressure can build what we now have. This home, this life, it's finally ours. And that's something no one can take away.